What is up, YouTube? My name is Alex. Welcome back to the Lifting Nomad. Today we are in Medellin, Colombia, the city of eternal spring. I've been living down here the last little bit, and as always, I want to give my take on what it's like to live here as a digital nomad. We're sitting in the hammock, we're chilling, we're vibing. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Alright, sweet. So we are back. I am in the hammock in my apartment in Medellin in El Poblado. And yeah, I want to talk about what it's like to live in Medellin as a digital nomad in 2023. So for those of you who have been following me or have watched some of my other videos, you'll know that I was in Medellin last January, February, and into March when Toronto went back into lockdown of 2022. And then now I'm here again in April of 2023. So it's kind of fun to be back in a city you stayed in before. Last time I was here, I was at a different company in a different role, similar position, but a different job. And I was with one of my good friends who's Colombian, so his mom's from Medellin, his dad's from Bogota. And I kind of leaned on him the whole time to be my crutch for translations and getting around. And I really didn't learn any Spanish or learn too much about the Colombian culture while I was here. I didn't get to meet too many locals. It was a very sheltered experience, honestly. We kind of just stayed in our poblado bubble, didn't go outside of that area. I didn't go to like Comuna 13 or like any of like the normal shit that people do when they come to Medellin. So this time around, I wanted to kind of try out the living more like a local. So again, my Spanish, I've been taking classes the last like 9-10 months, and my tutor's actually Colombian as well. She's from, she's Paisa, but she's not from Medellin. She's just outside of this city in a smaller town. And this time around was quite a bit different of an experience. So as always, the 5 things I like to categorize a city from in terms of, storming out I guess, in terms of livability, lifestyle, safety, fitness, cost, and nightlife. Those 5 things for me pretty much make up my dream sort of city, and those are things that I care about. Really, I like to travel, stay in shape, and live like a local. So with those things, it comes down to like food, fitness, and then enjoying the nightlife as well. So let's start with the actual lifestyle of living in Medellin. So again, I'm in El Poblado. There's basically 2 main neighborhoods in the city that most people stay in when they come to visit, Medellin or Los Reales. There's also like Envigado, which is pretty close to Poblado, and it's also like pretty high end and safe. And overall, the lifestyle here is very similar to a lot of other Latin countries. To be candid, like people work, work normal sort of hours. People go to the gym in the morning. People go to the grocery store like after work. It's fairly standard, I think, from a lifestyle perspective. For me, it's a really good city for like fitness, sort of living like lifestyle, because the food here, for a little bit of history lesson for you, Colombia is the 2nd most biodiverse country on earth. And in terms of size, like per, I don't know how they measure it, by per square kilometer or something, it's the most biodiverse country. So they have like a lot of crazy fruits and vegetables and like animals that you can't really get in other parts of the world. So for me, when I'm eating out and like ordering delivery, there's actually a ton of options that you can get for healthy food. And I remember that last time I was here, we ate very, very well. I stayed in shape the whole time I was here, which was awesome. And it's been really easy for me to adopt that again this time around. I think the people here are actually remarkably nice. As someone who's been in Argentina, Peru, Uruguay, Mexico, and now Colombia all within the last few months, the people here, the Paisas, are very, very warm, and they realize like my fluency in Spanish isn't great. I can obviously like hold a conversation, but they can tell right away, I think, that I have like maybe a gringo accent, even though I'm Canadian, not gringo. And they're very accommodating of like being patient and like helping me translate and just going along with it. So I think the people here are very, very friendly and have been awesome to meet. I've met a lot of locals this time around. I've gone to like the language exchanges and met people there. And it's just been really good to like just chat with people, at the gym or at the coffee shop or at the restaurant. And they're always very, very warm and welcoming. Not that they haven't been in other Latin countries, but the first time I was through here when I didn't speak any Spanish, my experience was quite a bit different. I thought I was kind of closed off. The locals were a little bit, they weren't doing anything wrong. I was just an idiot thinking that people spoke English, and in reality they don't. So coming here this time around with like basic understanding of Spanish, I think helped a ton. Second thing I was talking about is safety, of course, and not to beat around the bush, it is pretty well known that Colombia is not a super safe country, especially if you don't look like you're a Latino or Latina. So for someone like me who is very, very white, blonde hair, blue eyes, I stand out pretty much. Luckily, I've been leaning on my Argentinian accent for some of my Spanish to basically like presume that I'm from Argentina maybe. No, I don't know if it's actually helping, but that's been what I've been telling myself anyways. Safety-wise, I don't think you know, walking around Medellin at night by yourself drunk is not a good idea. Not a good idea in any Latin American city. I think especially Medellin, it's pretty well known not to walk on the streets by yourself after like 10 p.m. No matter what part of the city you're in, there's just opportunists who will potentially take advantage of someone who's just walking with their phone out or is alone. Not necessarily that it will be violent crime, but you know, there's a fair chance. Like people get robbed here fairly often. So I don't want to sugarcoat it and say that nothing bad will ever happen to you if you come to Colombia for an extended period of time. It likely will at some point. So if that's a deterrent for you, something that you can't get over, maybe Colombia is not the right place to go to. But I think overall Medellin, if you're smart about how you're traveling, you know, I've been through Latin for so long now that I got really used to just the general precautions, like don't keep your phone out when you're walking, like make sure you're aware of your surroundings, stay in a group if you can, take an Uber if it's after like 9 or 10 at night, don't be drunk on the streets like pretty much ever, don't no dar papaya, like don't give papaya is a really common phrase here, which is basically like don't give people a reason, right? Like don't dress like an asshole, don't dress like really flashy, don't have your iPhone out, have like your Apple Watch, whatever it is. But I think other than that, there's not anything like overwhelmingly obvious about the safety here. I think, you know, in Medellin, it definitely, you have to have respect for it and being smart about your surroundings, and ideally speaking Spanish again, I think helps, where people know they can't just talk in Spanish in front of you and, you know, potentially like be like, I don't know, in a cab texting someone or doing a voice chat to someone and like planning to potentially do something. If you can understand at least a little bit of Spanish, you can pick up on that and then you're not such an easy target. So that's a good thing to know. In terms of fitness culture here, like I said, with the food, it is actually pretty easy, I think, to stay in shape in this city. The weather is always very, very nice. Every single day it'll rain usually, but also every single day it'll be sunny. And it's always fairly warm here. Because it's basically directly on the equator, they have, the climate here is extremely stable of like a day-to-day thing. It's very wild in that day, like it's gonna have a thunderstorm, it's gonna be sunny, it's gonna be cloudy, it's gonna be rainy, but it's always the same temperature. So, you know, during the day in Celsius, it's like 25, and then at night it's like 16, 17 every single day. So it doesn't really change from that at all, which makes it easy to plan for like your clothes and what you're actually gonna pack when you come here. The fitness life, because of that weather thing, I think a lot of people just walk everywhere and it's really easy to get around on foot. That way, you know, you're getting a lot of steps in. It's a lot of hills as well. And then outside of the kind of walking on a daily basis, the gym culture here is actually really, really good. So in the Poblado area, there's a ton of different gyms. I'm gonna show you the two that I've been going to the most, but basically there's the same LatAm chain throughout most of Latin America called SmartFit. I went there in Peru, I went there in Mexico, and then I've gone there in Colombia in the past, so I already had a membership set up. And there's a few different locations in Poblado itself. Now, last year, I think I made the mistake of only going to the Manila one. Like I said, I pretty much never left the Poblado bubble. This year, I'm a bit more comfortable like exploring and going outside of that little bubble. And I went to two different ones that were easily like twice or 3 times the size and also very walkable from my apartment. So like an idiot, I was only going to the ones that were close and easy to me. But the two I'm gonna recommend here, Golden Mile SmartFit and SmartFit Santa Fe in the Santa Fe Mall. Now, the reason I recommend both of them, if you've ever been to the Manila gym, SmartFit, or like the Ultra Gym in the Charlie Hotel in Poblado, these are like ultra fuckery gyms, basically. They have tons of influencers, tons of personal trainers, like taking videos of their asses, and everyone's just like hogging the machines and not really working out. And again, not saying there's anything wrong with that, but for me, it's kind of a pain to actually try and exercise when people are just hogging all the equipment and actually not doing anything with it. So for me, I look for a gym that has a few squat racks, lots of weights, heavier dumbbells, where I can actually get a good workout in. And that was both the SmartFit Santa Fe and the SmartFit Golden Mile. Both of those will do the trick, very, very cheap, I think like 20 bucks a month. Big gym, lots of room, lots of space, lots of weights, and my recommendation of where to go in Poblado. Now, the fourth thing I always talk about is the cost, and of course it is going to be a little bit cheaper than pretty much anywhere in North America, like USA or Canada. I will say, compared to where I've been over the last little bit, Colombia is probably the second cheapest country I've been to in the last few months, compared to like Argentina being the cheapest. It is fairly affordable here. If you're smart about how you're like buying groceries, you can Rappi pretty much everything for fairly cheap. Dinners, like, you know, $5 to $10 depending on how, like, where you're buying from. You can get groceries for like $50 for like 2 weeks kind of thing. So it is fairly affordable. The Ubers here are also really, really cheap, like $1, $2 anywhere across the city. I just got a fresh fade today. Looks pretty good, I think. I got a shower still to see what it actually looks like, but yeah, it looks all right. And it cost me like 21,000 pesos, which is like $5. So everything here is like obviously like fairly discounted from North America. It's also important not to talk about how cheap you think it is. That again, just like makes you look like a stupid gringo who's ignorant to the fact that people here are not making as much as you likely are. But yeah, overall, I think the cost here, it's really, really cost effective. You can get an apartment for like $500 to $1,500 a month, depending on like your budget and your lifestyle, in Poblado, in a really safe, like good building with like all the normal infrastructure of homes. So that being said, definitely check it out for the cost. The internet here is also really, really good. Like Mexico City, ironically, doesn't really have that good internet despite the size of it. Medellin is like known, ironically, for having like very strong internet infrastructure. So you can get like same kind of speeds at home, like 200, 250 megabytes in most places, which is incredible. And it's fairly cheap, so something to think about. Finally, the fifth thing I'm gonna talk about is the nightlife. So for me, I always love to go out pretty much every country, every city I go to. That's a big part of traveling for me, is going out to dinner, going out to bars, meeting people, going to hostels, all that good stuff. Pub crawls, sporting matches, whatever you wanna say, I love it all. Here in Poblado, it's very, very good in the sense that if you're in Poblado in the central area, you're not gonna have to go far to find bars and nightlife. In Provenza and just like the Poblado area, even like Manila, where I was getting my barber done today, or that Smart Fit was, there's a ton of restaurants, cocktail bars, like dive bars, cheaper restaurants, to-go restaurants, fast food, like pretty much every sort of food you could want, you can find it here. And at different price points. They have everything up to like Michelin star restaurants at like El Cielo, down to like fast food like McDonald's, or even like cheaper, like sort of street meat kind of stuff, pricing. So nightlife wise, I think it's amazing. There's a ton of places on Provenza that are like actually dedicated towards gringos. There's a bar called Vin Trash that on Tuesdays does this thing called Gringo Tuesdays, where they rebrand basically the whole bar. They open it up and it's pretty much all the gringos, expats, and digital nomads who are in Medellin. They go there, they play like American music like Blink-182, Sweet Caroline, like Drake, like all the classic kind of shit you would hear at home in a bar in Medellin. So it's a really cool time to do that. And they actually do a language exchange before from like 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Great way to meet people if you're traveling solo, or great way to meet locals if that's your plan as well. So you're gonna be people practicing their English, people practicing their Spanish. It's a good place to go. So I think that pretty much covers my review of Medellin. As being someone who was here before and then coming back into the city, I love it. I'm very glad I came back and gave it another shot. Originally, I wasn't like super convinced that I would love it here, but now that I came through a second time, I speak Spanish, I'm meeting the locals in a new light. I love it here. It's really, really beautiful. The food's amazing. The culture's great. It's very accessible, walkable, tons of fitness, like access to fitness, which for me is super, super important. So for me, Medellin is one of my favorite cities. I still think Buenos Aires is my all-time GOAT for where I would potentially like want to live in the future. So permanent residency, gotta figure that out in Argentina, but Colombia, good place to go if you're looking to DN somewhere down in Latin America. So that's pretty much gonna cover the video. Hopefully this was useful. If it was, feel free to leave a like and comment in the section below. Always helps the algorithm. But as always, my name is Alex. Welcome back to Lifting Nomad. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.